G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks the 5 reasons why feminism fails, and more importantly we have a message at the end from our dear friend Amelia. Please don't fast forward to Amelia. I know how much you want to hear from her. Now, first off, right, we're talking about primarily in personal and professional life. They do overlap. Women try to compare themselves to men and try to outcompete men. They're not as developed as men physically, so they fail at competing with men, and thus, instead of focusing on their strengths, they focus on their weaknesses, and ultimately that has them failing, like Kathleen Kennedy and many others, female CEOs who they cannot achieve, right? They are thrust into positions that they do not belong in. Now, the videos in the background may not appear to belong to the statements I make, but they're there for filling in the a little bit of something to point and laugh at between my statements. Okay. Women have unequal access to sponsorship, therefore they are elevated to positions above their merit, while men are publicly ridiculed, shamed, and torn down by mobs, and thus you have companies that rise quickly with male workers. Let's look at the video game industry. And then they're replaced by female workers and they collapse. And everybody just rinses and repeats, thinking that wasn't real communism. Well, get it right the next time. Did I say communism? They meant feminism. But we all know they actually did mean communism. Moving on. Yes. So, women cannot collaborate. Number 3, women cannot collaborate. They are not supportive of each other. They undermine each other. And, of course, they get nasty. You just have to look at the cat fights that are going on today. The backstabbing that you hear in the news and tune out automatically as soon as you see Kathleen Kennedy, Cracker Barrel, any number of female celebrities, your brain goes, uh-oh, not this again, drama. Let's check out. You do the Homer Simpson retreat back into the hedges. This one. Yeah, my lunchbox is more important to me than a man pretending to be a woman. Alright. Women have more mental health issues. We covered that in other videos, but yes, it's actually not the prime reason, but I think it is one of the top. It is definitely one of the top 5 reasons why women fail. Right? They catastrophize everything. They cannot properly prioritize. Right? If everything is a catastrophe, they're always in a panic. They're always focusing on one thing. They disproportionately allow setbacks to affect them. And of course, this leads to physical problems where everything is not fine and they end up sobbing. Now we'll hear from Amelia before I go into the last point.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm not a white supremacist, but I am a white preservationist. Our ancestors built Westminster Abbey and wrote the Magna Carta in the 1200s. They invented the printing press and the computer. They discovered electricity and gravity. They built cars, then airplanes, then spaceships. Meanwhile, in the rest of the world, Indians fill their rivers with feces and corpses. The Thames isn't great, but corpses? Bangladesh is literally a garbage dump. In Pakistan, half the marriages are to first cousins.
Shobab?
Many African people still haven't worked out how to build wells or a two-story building. They don't share Western values. They don't have Christian morals, even vestigial ones. It isn't really their fault, but they don't. Of course, some from African and Asian backgrounds have adopted British culture and thrived. But that isn't these people. Or these. They come here because their homelands are awful places to live, but they made those places that way. I don't think third world hordes can or will preserve what we've spent 1,000 years building. And I don't think it's fair to our children and grandchildren. They have homes already. This one is ours.
Precisely. They kicked you, right? They kicked the British out of many countries, and now they want to come to England and say it's their human right. Because of feminism and pity parties. And that comes down to women and their mental illness. And of course it comes to point 5. Women, point 4 and 5. Point 4, mental illness, point 5. They can't right? They cannot collaborate. Oh, sorry, point 3, 4 and 5, right? They cannot collaborate. They have mental health issues, but license control, self-control, right? Everything's emotional. They've got to have pity parties. Everything is a victimhood, right? They need to take days off for their period. They come to work late. They leave early. They prioritise their social life. They prioritise their appearances. They prioritise gossiping. Women are far less productive, and this is why we have overproduction. But could you imagine, right? Could you imagine the statistics where we could cut the workforce by 10% without cutting productivity and cutting the debt? Because women won't be missed from the workplace, and we don't need to overproduce so many items to cater to women's desires, right? The competition isn't it amazing in business? The competition is to push the prices down on everything but computers and more important machinery for work, men's tools. Always, and men are always paying more every year. Yet women go out and buy, $5 sandals, $5 skirt, $5 shirt. The most they spend on is their underwear, and then they reject you because they want a $300 handbag for just, again, it comes down to lack of priorities, right? They cannot prioritize, they cannot collaborate, everything is emotional. So it's surprised that women succeed at all, but, it's like anything, quantity is its own quality, right? And if you have enough women, you're going to get enough successful women in the workplace. But what about the 90% who are there just collecting a paycheck, right? Dragging the rest of the government services. That's why everything takes so long, You really have, a situation where civilization can be saved merely by cutting the workforce, right? Cutting work hours, right? We stop overproducing. We stop importing third world, right? Right? We see when governments are collapsing, they layer the bureaucracies. But when the government becomes so bureaucratic, it becomes an inertia, and it creates an inertia behind it. Look at Joe Biden. Look at, Joe Biden isn't the only one. Let's look at India, right? Where's all of India's successes come from? Foreign aid, foreign companies, foreign technology, right? Indian tech companies, all these trained Indians, right? But how many? Hundreds of thousands get trained, but how many of them succeed, right? Again, it's quantity that produces those few successes, right? But those trained panjets taking jobs from your kids in your country, you know. And again, it's all about, but they can do it cheaper. So slavery is justified. That's what they're doing, right? They're justifying slavery. Right? You fought hard for your wages only to get replaced by someone who does it cheaper. And why do they do it cheaper? Again, if you looked at the media, you'll know it's because they put all the pollution, all the shortcuts, right? And they want you to fund it. And you've been feeding them for the last 50 years. If you didn't feed them for the last 50 years, they wouldn't have a quarter of your population. See, they were dying off, right? But some pity party came along and says, oh, they all revolted against us, but what we'll do is we want our influence. You know, all these influence peddlers, right? Again, that's feminism, right? Everything's emotional. Right? We got to stop electing feminist leaders. We got to stop catastrophizing, turning everything into bureaucratic systems. We got to stop prioritizing the effeminate, the emotional. Right? We got to take care of ourselves and our needs. Right? Let the Western world die. If it doesn't learn from its mistakes, then why should we save it? There are actually, I don't know if you know this, right? But there are actually people in the Bible, God says, these are the types you do not save, right? Jesus didn't pick up the demon-infested man at the pool who refused to take a bath. So why should you save demon-infested India? They refuse to take a bath, right? The India's not even our friend. They're in BRICS, right? They're China's and Russia's ally. They're only pretending to counter India. India's only trying to use us to counter Russia and China in Europe and Asia, and Africa, right? Now, stop pretending the mainstream media is telling you the truth, please, all right? Although I think most of my audience is here because they know it ain't the truth. But the vast majority, but every day I'm picking up new people who are seeking the truth, who are finally realizing that, Helen Merriam sold out generations of women. So did Gloria Steinem and all the other brown skin worshippers who wouldn't go live there, right? Jane Fonda, you like the Vietnamese so much, why don't you live there? Helen Merriam, you like the Indians so much, why didn't you live there? Wait, you did. You moved back after 6 months. You won't admit you were wrong, would you? You know? Learn your history, friends, and you'll actually understand. We have a culture, right? It's been shit on every day. But you look at Indian food, you look at the best meals in Japan. They mimic Western food. Maybe with Japanese ingredients, right? But you look at Japanese food. It's not the daily staple in Japan, right? Right? They have their meat and veg like the rest of us. They're just presented in a Japanese way, right? Ours is the greatest diet in the world, right? Just throw in some Mediterranean, you know. And now we have people trying to stir up the Irish by claiming the British caused the potato famine. That was farm mismanagement and the spread of the beetles, spread by beetles, right? Potato blight was spread by beetles, right? And blew in on foreign ships, right? This is why we have border controls. People forget why we have border patrols because you've had so much comfort, you've forgotten why we have some rules, right? Some rules that are important and some rules are necessary. But you get the libertarians who want to get rid of all these rules without even finding out why we have them. And then you got the liberals who want to keep adding more rules without even saying, because they think, oh, the carrot rules didn't stop crime, so we have to have more rules, right? again, it's catastrophizing, right? Libertarians and liberals, basically send them to India. Let them deal with it. So thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code. Thanks to every one of you who bought my books. I'm hoping that some of you will join my RPG for $1 a month to help support the channel. I really need financial support right now. Thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.